The stars glowed brightly outside the massive windows of the Galactic Concorde's capital station, a huge metal city floating in space. Inside, the air buzzed with the sounds of 100 alien voices. Ji-ho, a young diplomat from the Zorith people, stood nervously in the Grand Council chamber. His green scales shimmered under the soft lights, and his sharp eyes darted around the room. The Zorith were tall, lizard-like beings, proud of their logic and quick minds. Ji-ho was new to this job, and today felt heavy with importance. The chamber was a circle of shining stone, filled with aliens of every kind. There were the feathered Avorians, their wings tucked neatly, the glowing, jelly-like Lumerians, and the sharp-clawed Clythar, who looked ready to snap at anyone. At the center stood the High Speaker, an ancient Avorian named Kari, whose voice boomed like thunder.
"The edict stands,"
Kari said, raising a feathered arm.
"No harm shall come to humans.
This is the law of the Galactic Concorde, guarded by the Overseers." Ji-ho's tail twitched.
Humans.
He had heard of them, small, soft creatures from a distant planet called Earth. They had no claws, no scales, no natural weapons. Why were they so special? The edict was the oldest rule in the Concorde, a law no one dared break. The Overseers, a shadowy race no one truly knew, made sure of it.
Stories said their ships could destroy entire fleets in seconds. Ji-ho had never seen an Overseer, and he wasn't sure he wanted to.
He leaned toward his friend, a Lumerian named Suman, who floated beside him.
"Why humans?"
Ji-ho whispered. "They're weak. They don't even have starships like us." Suman's glow pulsed softly. "No one knows," she said.
"Some say humans are clever in ways we can't understand. Others say the Overseers see something in them. Ask too many questions, Ji-ho, and you'll get noticed." Ji-ho frowned. He didn't like mysteries.
Back on his homeworld, he had studied hard to become a diplomat, to solve problems with clear answers. But this edict made no sense. Why protect a species that couldn't even defend itself? He wanted to speak up, but the council chamber was no place for a young Zorith to challenge old laws. Kari's voice cut through his thoughts. "We have reports of trouble," the High Speaker said. "On Epsilon 7, a human colony, the Clythar faction led by Tae-sik has been causing problems.
They demand resources, ignoring the edict."
A hiss rose from the Clythar section. One of them, a tall warrior with jagged claws, stood.
"Tae-sik is no traitor," he growled. "The humans hoard water and metals.
Why should we starve while they thrive?"
Ji-ho's scales prickled.
The Clythar were fierce, and Tae-sik's group was worse rogues who followed no rules. If they were breaking the edict, it could mean war.
Or worse, the Overseers might step in. Kari's eyes narrowed. "The edict is clear. Humans are off limits. We will send a diplomat to Epsilon 7 to investigate and keep the peace." The High Speaker's gaze swept the room and landed on Ji-ho. "Ji-ho of the Zorith, you will go." Ji-ho's heart skipped. Him? He was barely out of training. Whispers rippled through the chamber, some mocking, some curious. Suman nudged him. "Good luck," she said, her glow dimming with worry. "I'm not ready," Ji-ho muttered, but Kari's stare silenced him. There was no refusing the council. He straightened his shoulders, trying to look confident. Inside, his mind raced. Epsilon 7 was far away, a small planet on the edge of Concorde space. He had never met a human before. What if they were as strange as the story said? The meeting ended, and Ji-ho walked through the station's crowded halls. Aliens of every shape moved past, some slithering, some flying, some clicking in languages he couldn't understand. The station was a marvel, built by the Concorde to unite the galaxy. But today, it felt like a maze trapping him in a puzzle he couldn't solve. At the docking bay, Ji-ho boarded a sleek Concorde shuttle. The pilot, a quiet Avorian named Minsu, gave him a nod. "Epsilon 7's a rough place," Minsu said. "Humans are tough, though." "You'll see." "Tough?" Ji-ho asked, buckling into his seat. "They have no armor, no weapons." Minsu's feathers ruffled. Not that kind of tough. They think fast. They don't give up.
The shuttle hummed to life, and the station's lights faded as they launched into the black of space. Stars streaked past, and Jiho stared out the window, his mind spinning.
What made humans so important? Were they really as clever as Minsu said, or was it all just rumors? And why did the overseers care so much?
He had heard tales of their power, ships that appeared from nowhere, voices that spoke in every language at once. Some said they were machines, others said they were gods.
Jiho didn't know what to believe.
As the shuttle sped toward Epsilon 7, Jiho pulled out his data tablet and read about the colony. It was small, only a few thousand humans living in metal shelters. They grew food in domes and mined rocks for fuel. The Clythar, led by Tae-sik, had been circling the planet, demanding water and metals. The humans had refused, and now things were getting dangerous. Jiho's tail flicked nervously. He was supposed to talk to both sides, keep the peace, and make sure the edict was followed.
But what if Tae-sik wouldn't listen? What if the humans were as stubborn as the Clythar said? And what if the overseers were watching? The shuttle shook as it entered Epsilon 7's atmosphere.
Through the window, Jiho saw a green and blue planet, dotted with clouds. It looked peaceful, but he knew better. Somewhere down there, trouble was brewing.
He clutched his tablet, trying to remember his training.
Be calm, be fair, be smart. That's what his teachers had said. But nothing had prepared him for this. Minsu's voice crackled over the speaker.
Landing in 10 minutes. Get ready, Jiho.
Jiho took a deep breath, his scales glinting in the shuttle's dim light. He didn't know what he'd find on Epsilon 7, but he felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders.
Humans were off limits, that was the law. But why? The question burned in his mind, sharper than ever.
As the shuttle descended, Jiho made a silent promise to himself, he would find the truth, no matter what it took. The ground came closer, and the shuttle touched down with a soft thud.
Jiho stood, his heart pounding.
Outside, the human colony waited along with answers, danger, and maybe the overseers themselves. He stepped toward the door, ready to face whatever came next.
The shuttle landed with a jolt on Epsilon 7's dusty ground.
Jiho, the young Zorith diplomat, stepped out, his green scales catching the faint sunlight. The air was dry, and the planet stretched out in patches of green and brown, with rocky hills in the distance. The human colony sat ahead, a cluster of metal buildings, domes, and pipes, looking small against the wide, wild land.
Jiho's tail twitched. This place felt alive but tough, like it was fighting to exist. A human approached, walking fast.
She was short, with dark hair tied back and dirt smudged on her face. Her clothes were worn, patched with bits of metal and cloth. "You're the Concord diplomat?" she asked, her voice sharp but calm.
"I'm Sujin, head engineer. Welcome to Epsilon 7. Jiho nodded, trying to hide his surprise.
Humans were smaller than he'd expected, with no scales or claws. Sujin's eyes were bright, though, and she moved like someone who didn't waste time.
"I'm Jiho," he said.
"I'm here to check on the Clythar trouble."
Sujin's face tightened. "Trouble's an understatement. Come see for yourself."
She turned and led him toward the colony, her steps quick.
Jiho followed, his long legs keeping up.
The colony buzzed with activity. Humans carried tools, fixed machines, or shouted orders. Some glanced at Jiho, curious about the tall, scaly alien, but most kept working.
The air smelled of metal and plants, strange to Jiho's nose.
Sujin pointed to a dome with glass panels. "That's where we grow food," she said.
"Water's scarce, so we recycle everything.
The Clythar want our reserves.
They've been raiding for weeks."
Her voice was steady, but Jiho saw anger in her eyes. He remembered the Council's warnings about Tae-sik, the Clythar warlord. The Clythar were insect-like, with hard shells and sharp claws, and Tae-sik's group didn't follow Concord rules.
Breaking the edict harming humans was forbidden, but Tae-sik didn't seem to care.
Jiho's job was to stop this before it got worse.
"Have you fought them?" he asked. Sujin smirked.
We don't start fights, but we finish them.
Come on, I'll show you.
She led him to the colony's edge, where a high fence of metal and wire stood. Beyond it, the land was rough, with rocks and dry grass. The Clythar come from there, she said, pointing to a canyon.
They think we're weak because we don't have fancy ships. Jiho tilted his head.
You don't look weak, he said, eyeing the fence. It was patched together, but strong, with sharp spikes at the top. Sujin laughed, a short, hard sound.
Good. Let's hope they learn that.
As they walked along the fence, a loud hum filled the air.
Jiho's scales prickled.
What's that? He asked, looking up.
Sujin's face went serious.
Clythar scouts.
Get down.
She pulled him behind a stack of crates. From the canyon, 3 Clythar skimmers, small, buzzing machines, sped toward the colony. Their riders, with shining shells and snapping claws, held energy weapons. Jiho's heart raced. They're attacking, he whispered. Sujin nodded, already tapping a device on her wrist.
Small group, testing us. Watch this.
She pressed a button, and the ground near the fence shook. Hidden panels opened, and nets shot out, tangling 2 skimmers. They crashed, their riders hissing in anger. The 3rd skimmer dodged, but a human on a tower fired a repurposed mining laser, slicing its wing.
It spun and fell. Humans cheered from the fence.
Jiho stared, his mouth open. The traps were clever, simple materials turned into weapons. The laser wasn't even a real gun, just a tool for cutting rocks. You made that? He asked Sujin.
She shrugged. We use what we have. Old machines, scrap metal, anything.
She stood, waving to the humans at the fence.
Clean it up, folks. Send those bugs back to Taysik. The humans moved fast, dragging the wrecked skimmers away and tying up the stunned Clythar. Jiho noticed they didn't kill them, just left them outside the fence.
He followed Sujin back to the main colony, his mind spinning. The Clythar were strong, but the humans had outsmarted them with junk.
You planned that trap? He asked.
Planned a lot of them, Sujin said.
Taysik's been poking us for months.
We're ready for worse. She led him to a workshop, a big shed filled with tools and half-built machines.
Humans worked there, welding metal or wiring circuits.
One was turning a broken drill into something that looked like a gun.
Jiho's tail flicked.
These humans weren't just surviving, they were inventing. Sujin sat on a crate, wiping sweat from her face.
The Concord says we're off limits, right? But Taysik doesn't listen. He thinks the overseers won't care about a small colony like us. Jiho frowned.
The overseers, those mysterious enforcers of the edict, were a shadow over the galaxy.
No one knew what they'd do if Taysik went too far.
The edict is law, Jiho said.
The overseers will act. Maybe, Sujin said.
But we don't wait for saviors.
We protect ourselves.
Her voice was firm, and Jiho saw strength in her, not just in her words but in how she led her people. He had thought humans were soft, but now he wasn't sure. That night, Jiho stayed in a small guest room in the colony. The walls were metal, patched with tape and bolts.
He lay on a hard bed, thinking about the skirmish. The humans had won without losing anyone.
The Clythar, with better weapons, had failed. Jiho's old ideas about humans weak, helpless, felt wrong now. Sujin's words echoed in his mind, we finish what others start.
Outside, the colony was quiet, but Jiho couldn't sleep.
He stepped out and saw Sujin at the fence, checking a trap. The stars above were bright, and the canyon loomed dark and dangerous.
You don't rest? Jiho asked, walking up. Not when Taysik's out there, she said. He's planning something bigger. I can feel it.
She pointed to the canyon. He's got a camp, maybe 100 Clythar.
They'll come soon. Jiho's scales tightened.
I'll report this to the Concord, he said.
They can send help. Sujin shook her head.
Help's too slow.
We'll handle it.
She looked at him, her eyes steady.
You're not like other diplomats, Ji-ho. You actually listen. He blinked, unsure what to say.
I want to understand, he said finally.
Why humans matter so much.
Sujin smiled, just a little.
Stick around. You'll see.
She turned back to the trap, tightening a wire.
Ji-ho watched her, his skepticism fading.
These humans were small, but they were fierce in their own way. As he walked back to his room, a distant hum echoed from the canyon.
Tae-sik was coming, and Ji-ho knew things were about to get dangerous.
The night sky over Epsilon 7 glowed with stars, but a new light appeared, a faint, silver shimmer near the planet's edge. Ji-ho, the young Zoreth diplomat, stood outside the human colony, his green scales catching the glow. His sharp eyes narrowed. That wasn't a star or a ship, he knew. It was something else, something that made his tail stiffen with unease. The colony slept, its metal buildings quiet, but Ji-ho felt danger in the air. Inside the colony's command shed, Sujin, the human engineer, worked late.
Her hands moved fast, wiring a new trap for the Clythar, the insect-like aliens harassing her people.
Ji-ho had seen her strength, her cleverness, and the way her colony fought with scraps and smarts. But now, as he watched the strange light grow, he wondered if her traps would be enough. Ji-ho's communicator buzzed. It was Min-soo, the Ivorian pilot who had brought him to Epsilon 7.
Ji-ho, you see that light?
Min-soo's voice was shaky.
It's an overseer ship.
They're here. Ji-ho's heart thudded. The overseers. The galaxy's enforcers, shadowy and unstoppable, who guarded the edict, no harm to humans.
No one saw them often, but their name alone brought fear. What do they want? Ji-ho asked, his voice low. They're broadcasting, Min-soo said. Listen.
Ji-ho pressed his communicator, and a deep, cold voice filled the air, speaking in every language at once. Clythar of Tae-sik, cease your attacks on Epsilon 7.
Harm humans, and you will face destruction. This is the Overseer's law.
The words hung heavy.
Ji-ho looked toward the canyon where Tae-sik's Clythar hid.
Their campfires flickered, too far to see clearly, but he knew they'd heard.
Would Tae-sik, the fierce warlord, listen? Ji-ho doubted it.
The Clythar were stubborn, and Tae-sik hated rules. He hurried to the command shed, his long legs moving fast. Sujin looked up as he entered, her face tired but alert.
What's wrong? She asked, setting down a tool. You look like you saw a ghost.
Not a ghost, Ji-ho said.
An overseer ship.
They warned Tae-sik to stop, or they'll destroy him.
Sujin's eyes widened. Overseers? Here?
She stood, wiping her hands on her patched jacket.
We've never seen them. Why now?
Ji-ho hesitated. The Concord told him to stay neutral, to only watch and report. But Sujin deserved to know. They protect humans, he said.
The edict says no one can harm you.
The overseers make sure of it.
Sujin frowned. Protect us?
We've been fighting alone for months.
Where were they when Tae-sik burned our fields?
Her voice was sharp, but Ji-ho saw worry in her eyes.
She didn't trust far-off saviors, and he couldn't blame her.
I don't know why they came now, Ji-ho said.
But I need to tell you something else.
He took a breath, his scales tightening.
Tae-sik's planning a big attack.
I saw his camp from the shuttle.
Hundreds of Clythar, maybe more. Sujin's face went hard.
How soon? She asked.
Soon, Ji-ho said. Days, maybe hours.
He paused, knowing he was breaking Concord rules.
You need to prepare.
The overseers might not act in time. Sujin stared at him, then nodded.
Thanks, Ji-ho. You didn't have to tell me.
She turned to a radio on the table.
Wake everyone, she said into it. We've got work to do. The colony came alive. Humans ran through the streets, carrying tools and weapons. Some pushed carts of scrap metal, others checked traps along the fence.
Sujin shouted orders, her voice steady.
Double the nets. Charge the lasers. We're not losing this fight. Jiho watched, amazed. These humans didn't wait for help, they acted. He followed Sujin to a tower overlooking the canyon.
She scanned the horizon with a small device.
T6 moving, she said. I see dust. They're not stopping, even with the overseers here. Jiho's tail flicked. They're fools, he said. The overseers don't make empty threats.
He remembered stories from his studies, old records of species that harmed humans. One, the Dravox, had attacked a human world long ago. Their fleet vanished overnight, and their planet was silent ever after. The records called it overseer justice. Jiho shivered, wondering what humans had done to earn such protection.
Why do they care about us? Sujin asked, as if reading his thoughts. We're just a small colony. We don't have ships or armies. Jiho thought of the records.
It's your adaptability, he said.
Humans change, learn, survive.
Other species are strong or fast, but you think differently. You make tools from nothing, like your traps.
Sujin raised an eyebrow.
You're starting to sound like you like us, she said, a small smile breaking through.
Jiho's scales flushed.
I'm just saying what I read, he muttered, but he felt a spark of pride for her.
She was proof of those records, smart, tough, unbreakable.
The silver light in the sky pulsed, and the overseer voice spoke again, colder this time.
T6, you have been warned. Retreat, or be erased. Jiho and Sujin froze, listening.
The canyon stayed quiet, but the dust clouds grew closer.
T6 was ignoring the warning. Sujin cursed under her breath.
They're coming, she said. We'll be ready, but I don't trust those overseers to save us. She ran down the tower, calling for more traps to be set.
Jiho stayed, watching the sky.
The overseer ship was a faint shape, sleek and strange, like nothing he'd seen. It didn't move, but its presence felt like a storm waiting to break. He pulled out his data tablet and sent a message to the Concorde, reporting T6 defiance. His claws shook as he typed. By warning Sujin, he'd crossed a line.
The Concorde wanted diplomats to stay out of fights, but Jiho couldn't stand by.
These humans weren't just a job, they were people, fighting for their home. If the Concorde punished him, so be it.
The night passed in a blur. Sujin's colony worked without rest, building new defenses.
Jiho helped where he could, carrying heavy wires and watching humans turn old machines into weapons. One man showed him a cannon made from a broken water pump. It shot sharp metal scraps.
Jiho's eyes widened.
This works, he asked.
The man grinned.
Better than you'd think, he said.
Jiho shook his head, amazed. Humans were full of surprises.
As dawn broke, the canyon rumbled. Clythar skimmers appeared, more than before, their claws glinting in the light.
T6 army was coming, and the overseer ship still hung silent in the sky.
Jiho stood by Sujin at the fence, his heart pounding.
You ready? He asked.
Sujin gripped a makeshift gun.
Always, she said. Let's show them what humans can do. Jiho nodded, his old doubts gone.
Whatever happened next, he was with them. The battle was near, and the overseers were watching. The dawn sky over Epsilon 7 burned red as T6 Clythar fleet roared from the canyon.
Dozens of skimmers, their metal shells glinting, sped toward the human colony.
Jiho, the Zorath diplomat, stood at the colony's fence, his green scales tight with tension. Beside him, Sujin, the human engineer, gripped a patched-together gun, her face fierce. The colony's defenses, nets, lasers, and traps, were ready, but the Clythar outnumbered them 10-1.
Jiho's tail flicked.
This was no skirmish. This was war.
Sujin shouted into a radio. Now! High above, a hidden satellite hummed, sending an EMP pulse.
A wave of crackling energy hit the front skimmers, frying their controls. 5 crashed, kicking up dust, their riders hissing in rage. The humans cheered, but more Clythar kept coming, their claws snapping.
Jiho's heart pounded.
The EMP was clever, but it wouldn't stop them all.
Fall back! Su-Jin yelled. Humans ran to the colony's inner walls, ducking behind crates and metal shields. Jiho followed, his long legs stumbling over wires.
He wasn't a fighter, but he couldn't just watch.
At a command post, Su-Jin checked a screen showing the battlefield. "They're splitting up," she said.
"Good.
That's what we want." Jiho blinked.
"You planned this?" he asked. Su-Jin grinned, quick and sharp.
"We don't have numbers, so we use tricks."
She pointed to the canyon's edge, where a blinking light flashed.
"Decoy beacon. It'll pull some of them away."
Jiho stared, amazed. The humans had built a fake signal to confuse the Clythar, using old radio parts. Sure enough, a group of skimmers veered toward the light, chasing nothing. But the main Clythar force kept coming. Their energy weapons fired, blasting holes in the fence.
Humans fought back with mining lasers and homemade cannons, shooting metal scraps.
Jiho saw a Clythar skimmer explode, hit by a trap hidden in the dirt.
Su-Jin's people were everywhere, darting between buildings, setting off nets, leading Clythar into dead ends.
It was chaos, but it was smart. Jiho's communicator buzzed. It was Minsu, the Ivorian pilot, watching from orbit. "Jiho, Tay-6 flagship is back there," Minsu said. "Big ship, directing the attack. If you hit it, they'll scatter."
Jiho's claws tightened.
He wasn't supposed to fight, but the humans needed every edge. He turned to Su-Jin.
"Tay-6 ship is in the rear. Can you target it?" Su-Jin's eyes lit up. "Give me the coordinates."
Jiho read the data from his communicator, his voice steady despite his fear. Su-Jin relayed it to a team on a tower. "Fire the big one," she shouted. A jury-rigged rocket, made from fuel tanks and pipes, launched with a roar.
It streaked toward the canyon and hit something big.
A fireball lit the sky, and Clythar skimmers faltered, their signals scrambled. Jiho's scales flushed with awe. "You did it," he said.
"Not yet," Su-Jin said, her face grim.
The Clythar were still coming, and the colony was running out of tricks. A skimmer crashed through the inner wall, and humans scattered, firing wildly. Jiho ducked as a claw swiped near him, missing by inches. Su-Jin pulled him behind a crate, her gun blasting. "Stay low," she yelled. The battle turned desperate.
Humans fought in small groups, hiding in alleys and striking fast.
Jiho saw a woman trap a Clythar with a net, then knock it out with a wrench. A man lured two skimmers into a pit, where they crashed. But the Clythar kept pushing, their numbers overwhelming. A building collapsed, and screams filled the air.
Jiho's stomach twisted.
The humans were brave, but they were losing. He looked to the sky, where the overseer ship still hung, silent and silver. "Why aren't they helping?" he muttered. The overseers had warned Tay-6, but now, with humans dying, they did nothing. Jiho's claws dug into the dirt. He sent another message to Minsu.
"Tell the overseers we need them. Now." Minsu's reply was faint. "They're listening, but I don't know, Jiho."
Jiho cursed, his diplomat's calm gone. He grabbed a metal pipe, ready to fight, when Su-Jin shouted, "Look." The sky changed. 3 new ships appeared, sleek in black, moving like shadows. Overseer ships. They glowed with strange light, and a deep voice boomed, shaking the ground. "Clythar, you were warned." Beams of white energy shot from the ships, precise and deadly. Clythar skimmers vaporized, leaving no trace. The attack was over in seconds, the canyon littered with smoking wrecks. Only Tay-6 flagship remained, floating untouched. Jiho's mouth fell open. The overseer's power was terrifying, like nothing he'd seen. The flagship hung still, then a beam of light wrapped it, pulling it toward the overseer ships.
Tay-6's fate was hidden, swallowed by the black hulls.
The overseer voice spoke once more.
"The edict stands."
Then the ships vanished, leaving only silence. The colony was a mess: broken walls, burning crates, wounded humans. But they were alive. Sujin lowered her gun, her hands shaking. "We did it," she said, her voice soft. She turned to Jiho, her eyes bright despite the dirt on her face. "You helped us. That data about Tae-Sik's ship, it made a difference." Jiho's tail flicked, embarrassed. I couldn't watch you lose," he said. "You're not what I thought humans were." Sujin laughed, tired but real. "Good. Keep thinking that." She clapped his shoulder, a human gesture he didn't quite understand but liked. Around them, humans began to clean up, tending to the hurt and fixing what was broken. They moved fast, already planning to rebuild. Jiho watched, his old ideas about humans gone. They weren't just clever, they were unstoppable. He looked at the sky, now empty of overseer ships. Their warning had been true, their power absolute. But it was the humans who'd held the line until help came. Jiho's communicator buzzed with messages from the Concorde, demanding reports. He ignored them. His place was here, for now, with Sujin's people. As the sun rose higher, Sujin called her team together. "We're not done," she said. "Tae-Sik's gone, but we need to be ready for anything." The humans nodded, their faces tired but strong. Jiho stood among them, feeling like he belonged, just a little. The edict had saved them, but the humans had earned their survival. He thought of the overseers, their cold voice, their hidden reasons. Why did they care so much? The question lingered, but Jiho knew one thing: humans were worth protecting. And he'd make sure the galaxy understood that. The shuttle hummed as it carried Jiho away from Epsilon 7, the green and blue planet shrinking behind him. His green scales still smelled of dust and smoke from the battle. The young Zorath diplomat sat quietly, his sharp eyes fixed on the stars. The human colony, with its scrappy buildings and fierce people, stayed in his mind. Sujin's face, tired but strong, lingered most of all. Jiho's tail flicked. He wasn't the same Zorath who'd landed there, full of doubts about humans. The Galactic Concorde's capital station loomed ahead, a giant metal city glowing in the dark of space. Jiho's heart felt heavy. He had to face the council, tell them what happened, and explain why he'd helped the humans against the Clythar. The Concorde liked neutrality, but Jiho had chosen a side. He gripped his data tablet, where his report waited words that could change things or end his career. The shuttle docked, and Jiho stepped into the station's busy halls. Aliens of every kind moved past: feathered Avorians, glowing Lemurians, and others he didn't know. Their voices buzzed, talking about the Overseer's attack on Epsilon 7. News had spread fast. Jiho overheard a Clythar hiss: "The Overseers wiped out Tae-Sik's fleet. No one's safe." Jiho's scales tightened. The galaxy was scared, and that gave him a chance to be heard. In the Grand Council chamber, the air felt thick. The High Speaker, Kari, stood at the center, her feathers ruffled. The council seats were full, hundreds of aliens, their eyes on Jiho as he walked in. His tail twitched nervously, but he stood tall. "Jiho of the Zorath," Kari said, her voice sharp. "Report on Epsilon 7. Jiho took a breath. "The Clythar, led by Tae-Sik, attacked the human colony," he said. "They ignored the edict and the Overseer's warning. The humans fought back with traps and tools, holding their ground. When the Clythar wouldn't stop, the Overseers destroyed their fleet, sparing only Tae-Sik's ship for something. The edict was upheld." Murmurs filled the room. A Lumerian floated forward, glowing dim. "Why did the Overseers act so fast?" she asked. "Humans are small, weak. Why protect them?" Jiho's claws tightened on his tablet. He thought of Sujin, wiring traps from scrap, leading her people through chaos. "Humans aren't weak," he said, his voice clear. "They're clever. They adapt. They turned junk into weapons, outsmarted the Clythar, and survived. The Overseers see their strength, and we should too." The chamber went quiet. Kari's eyes narrowed. "You sound fond of them," she said.
You broke neutrality by helping the colony. Why? Jiho's heart raced.
He could lie, save himself, but he thought of the humans rebuilding their broken homes. Because they deserved it, he said. They fought for their lives, not just for themselves but for each other.
If we keep treating them like primitives, we're blind. Humans could be our allies, not just a rule to follow. Whispers grew loud. Some aliens nodded, others hissed.
A Clythar stood, claws snapping.
Humans are trouble, he growled.
They provoke fights, then hide behind the overseers.
Jiho faced him. They didn't provoke Tae-sik. He wanted their water and attacked. The humans only defended themselves.
He held up his tablet, showing images from Epsilon 7 wreck skimmers, human traps, Sujin's team fixing a wall.
Look at them. They don't need our pity.
They need our respect.
Carrie raised a wing for silence. The Overseer's power is clear, she said. Their law stands.
But Jiho's words, they carry weight.
We will discuss human policies.
The Concord may need to change. She looked at Jiho, her eyes softer.
You've given us much to think about.
Jiho bowed, his scales warm with relief. He'd done it, spoken for the humans and lived. As the council argued, he slipped out, his steps lighter.
The station's halls felt less like a maze now.
He stopped at a window, where a hologram of Earth spun slowly. It was a small planet, blue and green, nothing special at first glance.
But Jiho knew better. Humans were more than they seemed. Back on Epsilon 7, the colony buzzed with life.
Sujin stood in the workshop, her hands dirty from fixing a water pump. Around her, humans rebuilt, patching walls, planting new crops, laughing despite their wounds. They didn't know about Jiho's speech or the Overseer's reasons.
They didn't need to. They were proud, strong, and alive.
Sujin looked at the sky, where the Overseer ships had vanished.
Hope they stay gone, she muttered, then smiled. But if they come back, we'll be ready. Her team nodded, their tools clanging. The colony was their home, and they'd fight for it, always. Jiho, on the station, stared at Earth's hologram.
He thought of the Overseer's final message, heard by every ship near Epsilon 7, humans are protected for their strength. The words echoed in his mind, clear and true. Humans weren't just survivors, they were builders, thinkers, fighters.
The galaxy didn't know their full potential, but Jiho did.
He remembered Sujin's grin, her quick hands, her stubborn will. She was proof of that strength, and so were her people.
Jiho's tail flicked, a spark of excitement in his chest. What could humans do if the Concord let them grow? Build ships? Join councils? Change the stars?
The possibilities were endless. A soft beep came from his communicator. It was Sumin, his Lumerian friend. You stirred up trouble, she said, her glow pulsing through the screen. The council's debating human rights now.
You're either a hero or a fool.
Jiho laughed, a rare sound for a Zorith. Maybe both, he said.
But the humans are worth it.
Sumin's glow brightened.
You've changed, Jiho. What's next? He looked at Earth's hologram, its oceans shining.
I want to learn more, he said.
About humans, about why the Overseers care. There's something big coming, Sumin. I can feel it. She hummed. Then keep your eyes open.
The galaxy's watching.
Jiho nodded, his mind racing.
The Overseer's words stayed with him, humans are protected for their strength. Not weakness, not pity, strength. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and wonders, and humans were part of it, ready to rise.
Jiho smiled, his scales glinting.
Whatever came next, he'd be there, watching, learning, and maybe helping humans find their place among the stars.